I'm Allison, Kolmekummentakax, standing frozen at my sister Rachel's wedding reception as she publicly thanked our deceased mother for selling her cherished vacation home to fund this extravagant $50,000 celebration. My blood ran cold. Our mother had actually left that property to both of us in her will, but Rachel convinced me to sell it by claiming desperate financial troubles. I'd given her half the money to save her from bankruptcy, not for this lavish spectacle with ice sculptures and a designer gown. As I gripped my champagne flute, something inside me snapped. Mom's inheritance wasn't meant for this. Before I continue this story about family betrayal and the ultimate moment of truth, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If you've ever had to deal with family inheritance drama, hit that like button to let me know I'm not alone. Subscribe to catch more real-life family stories that show how karma eventually catches up to everyone. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. Growing up, Rachel and I were always different. I was the responsible, practical older sister, while Rachel, 4 years younger at 28, was the charming one who could talk her way out of anything. Our mother adored both of us, but there was no denying that Rachel knew exactly how to wrap Mom around her finger, with those big blue eyes and theatrical tears that appeared on command. Allison is my rock, but Rachel is my sunshine, Mom would say. It was her way of acknowledging our differences without picking favorites, though sometimes it felt like she did. Rachel got away with everything. Missed curfews, questionable boyfriends, failed classes that were miraculously fixed with tearful conferences with teachers. Meanwhile, I was the one helping Mom with bills, making sure Rachel got to her activities, and keeping our household running smoothly. When Mom was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer last year, I took family medical leave from my job as a nurse practitioner to care for her. Rachel visited occasionally, usually arriving with shopping bags and stories about her problems, leaving after an hour because the hospital environment was too depressing. She was too busy with her new engagement to William Bennett, the son of a local business owner, to help with Mom's care. William's family had expectations. Their daughter-in-law needed to fit a certain image, and Rachel was desperate to meet it. Our father had died when I was 10, and Rachel was 6, leaving Mom to raise us alone on her teacher's salary. The one luxury she allowed herself was a small cottage on Lake Michigan that had been in her family for generations. It wasn't fancy, just a 2-bedroom weathered blue house with a screened porch and direct access to the water, but it was our sanctuary. Every summer, we'd spend weeks there, swimming, reading on the dock, and watching fireflies from the porch swing. Mom would make her famous blueberry pancakes on Sunday mornings, and we'd eat them looking out at the lake. "This cottage is our family's heart," Mom would say. "No matter where life takes us, we always have this place to come back to." When Mom passed away 8 months ago, her will was simple. She left her modest savings and the house we grew up in to be split equally between Rachel and me. The cottage, however, had special instructions. It was left jointly to both of us with the hope that we would continue bringing our future families there, keeping our connection to each other and to her alive through shared summers by the lake. I cried when the lawyer read that part. It was so perfectly Mom, practical and sentimental at the same time. The cottage wasn't worth a fortune, but lakefront property in Michigan had appreciated considerably over the years. The realtor estimated it at around $380,000, but its emotional value was immeasurable to me. Rachel, on the other hand, seemed distracted during the reading of the will, checking her phone and sighing impatiently. When we left the lawyer's office, she merely shrugged and said, "I guess that's fine. William and I will probably want our own vacation place anyway." At that point, Rachel was working as a marketing assistant, her 5th job in 3 years, and living in an apartment she could barely afford. Her engagement to William had accelerated her already problematic spending habits. William came from money, and Rachel was determined to look the part of a suitable wife, regardless of her actual budget. My boyfriend Michael saw through Rachel's act from the beginning. "She's using you." He'd warn me after Rachel would leave our apartment, having borrowed money she never repaid or talked me into buying her lunch, dinner, and somehow a new pair of shoes during what was supposed to be a quick coffee catch-up. "She's my sister, I'd defend her. She's just going through a rough patch." Those rough patches had been occurring regularly since Rachel was 16. I lost count of how many times I'd covered her rent, paid off a credit card, or loaned her money that mysteriously transformed into a gift when repayment time came around. Mom had done the same, dipping into her modest retirement savings more than once to bail Rachel out. After Mom's funeral, I spent a weekend alone at the cottage, sitting on the dock where Mom had loved to read, and walking the shoreline collecting the smooth stones she had always pocketed. I could feel her presence in every corner of that small house, in the worn path of the kitchen floorboards, the slightly crooked bookshelf Dad had built, and the growth chart on the pantry door with our heights marked in pencil. I made her blueberry pancakes on Sunday morning and ate them alone on the porch, promising her spirit that I would keep this place in our family just as she wanted. Rachel hadn't joined me, claiming the cottage would be too depressing without Mom. I understood we all grieve differently, but part of me suspected the real reason was that William had invited her for a weekend at his parents' country club. Michael joined me on my last day there, helping me close up the cottage for the season. As we locked the door, he took my hand and said, "This place is special, Ollie. Your mom gave you both an amazing gift." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. What I didn't know then was how quickly that gift would become the center of the worst betrayal I'd ever experienced, and how it would ultimately force me to choose between family loyalty and my mother's true wishes. 3 months after Mom's death, I was settling into a new routine. The initial shock of grief had given way to a quieter sadness. I was back at work full-time, and Michael and I were talking about moving in together. I hadn't heard much from Rachel besides occasional texts and Instagram updates showing her and William at various upscale restaurants and events. Then, one Tuesday evening, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened the door, I found Rachel standing there, mascara streaked down her face, looking utterly destroyed. I immediately pulled her inside. "What happened? Is it William? Are you hurt?" I asked, guiding her to my couch. "It's everything, Ollie," she sobbed, digging through her designer handbag for tissues. "I'm completely drowning. I didn't want to tell you because I know you're still grieving, Mom, but I can't hide it anymore." Over the next 2 hours, Rachel spun a tale of financial disaster that made my stomach drop. According to her, she had accumulated nearly $60,000 in credit card debt, was 3 months behind on her car payments, and had received final notice on her rent. She showed me banking statements with alarming negative balances and a stack of threatening letters from debt collectors. "If William or his family find out about this, they'll call off the wedding for sure," she cried. "His mother already makes these little comments about fiscal responsibility and living within one's means. They expect their son to marry someone who won't embarrass them." I was stunned. "Rachel, why didn't you come to me sooner? We could have worked out a payment plan or something." "I was ashamed," she whispered, looking down. "And after losing Mom, I just couldn't put more burden on you." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I've been talking to a bankruptcy attorney, but he says if I file, it will follow me for years. William's family does background checks for their business partners. They'd find out eventually." I made her tea while trying to process everything. "What about your job? Can you get a second one?" Rachel shook her head miserably. "I got laid off last month. I've been pretending to go to work because I didn't want William to know." As I sat across from my little sister, seeing her broken and desperate, I felt a familiar protective instinct rise up. This was the same girl I'd defended from playground bullies, the same girl whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose homework I'd helped with. "What about Mom's savings?" I suggested. "Your half should help make a dent." "It's already gone," she admitted. "I used it to pay off the most aggressive collectors and for a few months of rent. But it wasn't enough." Then she looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "There's only one thing that could save me now, Ollie. The cottage." My heart sank. The cottage? But Mom wanted us to keep it in the family. "I know," Rachel whispered. "And in a perfect world we would. But I'm about to lose everything. My relationship, my future, my credit, everything. If we sell it, my half could clear my debts and give me a fresh start. Please, Ollie, Mom would want you to help me." That last sentence hit me right in my weakness. What would Mom want? She had always protected Rachel, always found ways to help her out of her messes. "I can't make a decision like this right now," I said. "I need time to think." Rachel nodded but left behind the folder of financial documents for me to review. Just look at these. You'll see how bad it is. After she left, I called Michael, who came right over. He examined the statements with a skeptical eye. Something seems off, he said, pointing to a debt collection notice. The formatting looks strange. And why would they misspell the bank name in their own letterhead? She's desperate. But I don't think she'd lie about something this serious, I defended. Besides, this fits her pattern. You know how she is with money. Michael wasn't convinced. Before you agree to anything, verify these debts independently. Call the banks yourself. But I didn't follow his advice. Rachel called daily, becoming increasingly panicked about creditors harassing her and the possibility of eviction. She forwarded emails from her supposed bankruptcy attorney and sent screenshots of threatening text messages. 2 weeks later, I relented. Okay, we can sell the cottage, I told her over the phone. But I'll handle everything. You're too stressed to deal with realtors and paperwork. Her relief was palpable. Thank you, Allie. You're saving my life. Mom would be so proud of you for helping me like this. The selling process was painful. Each time I drove up to meet with the realtor or to clear out another room of memories, my heart broke a little more. I carefully packed Mom's books, the family photo albums, the collection of stones and beach glass that she'd gathered over decades. Rachel was conspicuously absent during this process, claiming it was too emotional for her to handle. The cottage sold quickly for $380,000. Lakefront property was in high demand. After closing costs and taxes, each of us would receive about $190,000. The day the funds were transferred, I immediately wired Rachel's share to her account. She called me in tears, happy ones this time. I can't believe it. All my debts can be cleared now. You've saved me from financial ruin, Ollie. I'll never forget this. Just promise me you'll be more careful with money going forward, I said. And maybe someday we can buy another place on the lake. Not the same, but something new for our families to share. Absolutely, she agreed quickly. This is a fresh start. Things will be different now. That night, I cried myself to sleep in Michael's arms. I did the right thing, didn't I? I asked him. Helping her was what Mom would have wanted. He stroked my hair silently for a moment before answering. I hope so. For your sake. Over the next few weeks, I noticed some concerning signs but dismissed them. Rachel posted photos at an expensive salon getting pre-wedding hair trials. She mentioned weekend trips with William to Chicago. Once, I spotted her coming out of Nordstrom with multiple shopping bags when I was meeting a friend at the attached restaurant. When I casually asked how her debt repayment was going, she assured me everything was being taken care of but changed the subject quickly. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe that giving up our mother's beloved cottage had been worth it. Michael's suspicions remained. Ask for proof she's paid the debts, he suggested one evening. Receipts, confirmation emails, something. I can't do that, I objected. It would be like saying I don't trust her. Maybe you shouldn't, he muttered, but dropped the subject when he saw my expression. Looking back, I should have listened to him. I should have verified the debts before agreeing to sell. I should have requested documentation of the repayments, but I was still deep in grief, still trying to be the supportive big sister, still trying to do what I thought Mom would want. And that blindness to Rachel's true nature was about to cost me dearly. 6 weeks after selling the cottage, a thick cream envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was an elaborately designed wedding invitation, with gold foil lettering and a watercolor illustration of an upscale local venue called the Ellington Estate. The invitation announced the marriage of Rachel Marie Collins to William James Bennett, with a reception to follow. The date was set for just 3 months away. I was surprised by the rushed timeline and the obvious expense of just the invitations, but I called Rachel to congratulate her properly. The Ellington Estate? Isn't that the new luxury venue that used to be a historical mansion? I asked after the initial excitement. Yes, isn't it amazing? They only do a few weddings per year, so we were lucky to get a cancellation, Rachel gushed. Wait until you see it, Allie. It has these gorgeous gardens and a ballroom with crystal chandeliers. It must be expensive, I commented cautiously. Oh, William's parents are covering most of it, she said dismissively. They insisted on giving us the wedding of our dreams. Future family business connections and all that. That explanation seemed reasonable enough. William's family was well off, and they might very well want to showcase their son's wedding as a social event. Still, something felt off about the sudden acceleration of wedding plans right after Rachel received her inheritance money. 2 weeks later, Rachel asked me to meet her at a bridal boutique for dress shopping. When I arrived, she was already trying on gowns with a glass of champagne in hand. "What do you think of this one?" She twirled in a heavily beaded design. "It's Vera Wang." The sales associate nearby smiled. "It's perfect on you." And quite a statement at $15,000. I nearly choked on my complimentary champagne. $15,000? For a dress you'll wear once? Rachel waved dismissively. William's mother is handling the attire budget. She wants everything to be perfect. Later, as Rachel tried on another gown, the sales associate chatted with me. "Your sister has exquisite taste." She's already put deposits on the Louboutin bridal shoes and a cathedral-length Italian lace veil. At lunch afterward, Rachel kept mentioning more extravagant details. A 10-piece band, rare out-of-season flowers being flown in, a 5-tier cake from a celebrity baker, crystal champagne flutes as guest favors. "Rachel, this all sounds excessive," I ventured carefully. "Are you sure William's parents are okay covering all this?" "They're contributing," she said vaguely. "Plus, we have our own savings. Don't worry about it." "What savings?" Just 2 months ago, she was supposedly on the brink of bankruptcy. My suspicions grew when Rachel asked me to meet her and her wedding planner at the Ellington estate the following week. As we toured the venue, the planner, Sophia, reviewed their selections. "So we've confirmed the ice sculpture display for the cocktail hour, the champagne tower, and the custom lighting package," Sophia said, consulting her tablet. "Rachel, I'll need your final decision on the luxury portable restroom trailers for the garden area by Friday." "Portable restroom trailers?" I questioned after Sophia stepped away to take a call. "I thought this place was a high-end venue." "It is, but the historic building has limited facilities," Rachel explained. "The luxury trailers look like actual bathrooms with real fixtures and attendants. They're $8,000, but worth it to avoid guests waiting in line." $8,000 for toilets? Something was very wrong with this picture. "Rachel, can we talk privately for a minute?" I pulled her aside into an empty room. "How much is this wedding costing in total?" She fidgeted with her engagement ring. "I don't know exactly. William's handling most of the finances." "Ballpark it for me," I insisted. "Maybe around 50,000? She said, not meeting my eyes. $50,000? I repeated. "After you were just in financial crisis?" "Rachel, where is this money coming from?" "I told you, William's parents are helping," she snapped. "Why are you interrogating me? Can't you just be happy for me?" That night, I couldn't sleep. The numbers weren't adding up. On impulse, I texted William's mother, Karen, whom I'd met at the engagement party months earlier. "Hi, Karen. It's Allison, Rachel's sister. The wedding plans look amazing. Rachel mentioned you're generously contributing to the wedding costs. I'd love to know if there's something special I could get for you and Mr. Bennett as a thank you." Her response came the next morning. "Hello, Allison. That's thoughtful of you, but unnecessary. We're happy to contribute our standard gift of $5,000 toward the wedding." William and Rachel insisted on handling the rest themselves. $5,000, not $50,000. With growing dread, I drove to Rachel's apartment when I knew she'd be at work. Using the spare key she'd given me years ago, I let myself in. I wasn't proud of snooping, but I needed answers. In her home office, I found a wedding planning binder tucked in her desk. Inside was a detailed budget spreadsheet showing a total wedding cost of $48,750. Next to most items were checkmarks indicating paid with dates from the past month. In the income section, there was a line item that made my blood run cold. Mom's Cottage Fund, $190,000. There was no massive credit card debt, no bankruptcy attorney, no financial crisis. It had all been an elaborate lie to get me to sell our mother's beloved cottage so Rachel could have an extravagant wedding. As I flipped through more pages, I found a handwritten note from Rachel to her wedding planner. Don't discuss budget details in front of my sister. She thinks Will's parents are paying. We'll explain later. Feeling sick, I returned everything exactly as I'd found it and left. In my car, I called Michael, barely able to speak through my tears. You were right, I choked out. She lied about everything. The cottage money is paying for her wedding. Oh, Allie, he said softly. I'm so sorry. That evening, Rachel came to my apartment unannounced. The wedding planner told me you seemed concerned about costs yesterday, she said casually, helping herself to a glass of wine from my fridge. I don't want you stressing about money, Allie. Everything's covered. I took a deep breath. By whom exactly? William's parents told me they're contributing $5,000. Rachel's expression shifted almost imperceptibly before she recovered. You contacted Karen? Why would you do that? Because things aren't adding up, Rachel. You were supposedly in crippling debt 2 months ago. Now you're spending $50,000 on a wedding. Where's the money coming from? William had some investments mature, she said quickly. Plus, we've both been saving. Stop lying to me, I said quietly. I saw your wedding binder. I know you're using the cottage money. Her face hardened. You went through my things? How dare you? How dare I? How dare you lie to me about being in financial crisis? You manipulated me into selling Mom's cottage. The one thing she specifically wanted us to keep in the family. For your wedding? Rachel rolled her eyes. It's just a house, Allison. An old, outdated house that needed constant maintenance. Mom would have understood that we needed to move on. No, she wouldn't, I said, my voice breaking. That cottage meant everything to her. To us. Well, it's done now, Rachel said dismissively. The money's spent. Deposits are non-refundable. What do you want me to do? Tell the truth, I demanded. Admit what you did to me, to William, to everyone. She laughed coldly. And ruin everything? No way. Look, in a few months this will all blow over. Maybe William and I will buy you a nice vacation timeshare or something. As she headed for the door, she turned back. By the way, you're still my maid of honor. Don't even think about backing out. It would raise too many questions. The door slammed behind her. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process the depth of her betrayal. Not only had she lied to get her hands on our mother's most precious gift to us, but she felt absolutely no remorse. To her, the cottage was just a means to an end, a way to fund her fairy tale wedding. And I had handed it to her, no questions asked. The weeks leading up to Rachel's wedding were excruciating. Despite the betrayal, I found myself going through the motions of maid of honor duties. Part of me hoped that confronting Rachel might have sparked some guilt or reflection, but she carried on as if our conversation had never happened, filling my days with bridal obligations. The bridal shower was held at an upscale restaurant with 30 guests. As Rachel opened expensive gifts, she made a show of gratitude that turned my stomach. Mom would be so happy to see all of us together celebrating, she said, dabbing at non-existent tears. She always wanted me to have my dream wedding. Several guests murmured sympathetically about how Rachel's mother had made such a sacrifice to ensure her daughter's special day. Confused, I pulled aside our Aunt Patricia, Mom's older sister. What sacrifice? I asked casually. Aunt Patricia lowered her voice. Rachel told us how your mother arranged to sell the lake cottage before she passed, specifically to fund Rachel's wedding. Such a beautiful final gift. My jaw dropped. She told you that? Yes, at the engagement dinner. She said your mother wanted her youngest daughter to have the wedding she deserved, knowing she wouldn't be there to see it. It brought us all to tears. I excused myself to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall until I could breathe normally again. Rachel hadn't just lied to me. She'd fabricated an entire narrative about our mother's wishes, painting herself as the recipient of a dying mother's sacrifice rather than admitting she'd manipulated her way into the inheritance. At the dress fitting the following week, Rachel critiqued my appearance relentlessly. You really need to tone up your arms before the wedding, Ollie, she commented, as I tried on the bridesmaid dress she'd selected, an unflattering style in a color that washed me out completely. And maybe get a spray tan. You look sickly, pale. Later, as the seamstress pinned her gown, Rachel chatted about the honeymoon. We're doing 2 weeks in the Maldives, she announced. Private villa over the water, personal chef, the works. It's costing a fortune, but we deserve it after all the wedding stress. Sounds nice, I replied flatly. Is that coming from the cottage fund too? The seamstress glanced up awkwardly, but Rachel laughed it off. Allison has such a strange sense of humor, she told the woman. Our mother left us a small property that we sold. Allison calls it the cottage fund because she's sentimental. Each interaction with vendors revealed more extravagance. Custom monogrammed napkins, hand-calligraphed place cards, imported flowers, and a videographer who typically worked with celebrities. Rachel's behavior toward these professionals ranged from condescending to outright rude. No, these roses aren't the right shade. She snapped at the florist during a sample arrangement review. I specifically said ballet pink, not bubblegum. My mother is paying a premium for this wedding. I expect perfection. The constant invocation of our mother as the financial benefactor behind the wedding made me physically ill. Not only had Rachel stolen the cottage from us both, but she was using Mom's memory to extract special treatment and to explain away the sudden lavish spending. I began avoiding Rachel when possible, making excuses to miss appointments and sending Michael as my proxy to the co-ed wedding shower. This strategy worked until the bachelorette party, which, as maid of honor, I couldn't escape. Rachel had planned a weekend at a luxury spa resort. As her friends chatted excitedly about the wedding, one of them turned to me. Your mom was amazing for setting all this up for Rachel before she passed, said Jen, a college friend of Rachel's. My parents are alive and well, and they wouldn't fund half of what Rachel's getting. What exactly did Rachel tell you about our mom and the wedding? I asked carefully. That she sold her vacation home to give Rachel her dream wedding, knowing she wouldn't live to see it, Jen replied. Rachel said it was your mom's dying wish. So beautiful. That night, after everyone else had passed out from too much champagne, I confronted Rachel in our shared hotel suite. You need to stop telling people Mom sold the cottage for your wedding, I said firmly. It's a lie, and it dishonors her memory. Rachel rolled her eyes. Why are you so obsessed with this? No one cares about the boring truth. I care, I said. Mom cared. She wanted us to keep the cottage in the family. That was her actual dying wish, not funding your Instagram perfect wedding. Well, it makes a better story my way, she shrugged. Besides, Mom always helped me financially. She would have wanted me to have this wedding. No, she would have wanted you to be honest and responsible, I countered. If you don't stop spreading lies about her wishes, I'll tell everyone the truth. Rachel's expression darkened. You wouldn't dare. You'd just make yourself look petty and jealous. Besides, who would believe you over the grieving bride whose mother's last act was to ensure her happiness? She stepped closer to me. If you ruin this for me, Allison, we're done. I mean it. I'll never speak to you again. Maybe that would be for the best, I said quietly. Think about what you're saying, Rachel warned. We're the only immediate family each other has left. Are you really willing to throw that away over an old cottage and some wedding expenses? I didn't have an answer. Despite everything, the thought of losing my only sister terrified me. We'd already lost both parents. Could I really sever our last family tie? The rehearsal dinner was held at an exclusive restaurant 2 nights before the wedding. William's father gave a touching speech about welcoming Rachel into their family. Rachel's eyes welled with tears as she stood to respond. I wish my mother could be here tonight, she said, her voice breaking artfully. But in a way, she is. Her final gift to me was making sure I could have the wedding of my dreams. She sold her beloved lake house, knowing that although she wouldn't see me walk down the aisle, she could still give me this perfect day. Glasses raised around the room. I kept mine on the table, feeling Michael's hand squeeze my knee supportively beneath the tablecloth. Everything okay? William asked, noticing my lack of participation in the toast. He'd always been kind to me, and I suspected he had no idea about Rachel's deception. Just missing Mom, I said, which wasn't a lie. After dinner, William pulled me aside. I wanted to thank you personally, he said earnestly. Rachel told me how you handled all the details of selling your mother's cottage. I know it must have been difficult. I stared at him. What else did Rachel tell you about the cottage? That your mother had arranged for it to be sold to pay for our wedding, and you executed her wishes after she passed, he said. It's an incredible gift from both of you. So William had been deceived too. How deep did Rachel's web of lies go? William. That's not exactly. Sweetheart, there you are. Rachel materialized beside us, linking her arm through William's. The Johnsons want to introduce us to their son who works in finance. She smiled tightly at me. Sibling bonding time is over, Ollie. Duty calls. As I watched them walk away, I realized I was running out of time to decide what to do. The wedding was just 2 days away. If I stayed silent, Rachel's lies would become our family's accepted history. But if I spoke up, I risked losing my sister forever. That night, lying awake beside Michael, I whispered, "What would you do?" He was quiet for a long moment before answering. I'd ask myself what hurts more. Losing a sister who would lie and manipulate you this way. Or losing your integrity by letting her rewrite your mother's legacy. His words echoed in my head as I tossed and turned all night. By morning, I still didn't have an answer, but I knew time was running out to make my decision. I know this is a difficult situation I'm sharing, and many of you have probably faced tough family moments too. If you're also dealing with challenging relatives or have had to make hard choices to stand up for what's right, drop a like on this video to let me know I'm not alone. Trust me, what happens next took every ounce of courage I had. Subscribe to see more real stories about family dynamics and the moments that test us to our core. The morning of Rachel's wedding arrived with picture-perfect weather, sunny skies and mild temperatures that the wedding planner declared a gift from above. I showed up at the bridal suite in the Ellington estate at the appointed time, makeup done and hair styled according to Rachel's specifications. The suite was chaos. Bridesmaids in matching robes taking selfies, Rachel's friends popping champagne bottles, the makeup artist touching up Rachel's already flawless face, and the photographer capturing every moment. Rachel sat in the center of it all, looking radiant and completely in her element. "Ollie! Finally!" she exclaimed when she saw me. "Can you check on the florist? The bouquets were supposed to be here an hour ago." I nodded wordlessly and stepped out to make the call, grateful for the momentary escape. When I returned, Rachel was criticizing the hairstylist. "Mom would have hated this style," she complained, examining her reflection. "She always said I looked best with some volume at the crown." The casual invocation of our mother made my stomach tighten. Rachel had been doing this constantly, claiming to know what Mom would have wanted or thought about wedding details, using her absence to manipulate others and gain sympathy. It was as if she was rewriting Mom's personality to fit whatever narrative served her at the moment. While helping Rachel into her extravagant gown, the $15,000 Vera Wang with hand-beaded crystals and a 6-foot train, I noticed her wedding planning binder open on a nearby table. Beside it was a small leather-bound book I recognized immediately. Mom's journal. My heart skipped. Mom had kept journals throughout her adult life, documenting family memories and her private thoughts. After her death, Rachel and I had each taken a few as keepsakes. This particular one was from the year before Mom's diagnosis. When Rachel stepped into the bathroom with the seamstress for a last-minute hem adjustment, I quickly picked up the journal. A bookmark was placed about halfway through, and when I opened to that page, I saw a passage circled in red pen. "Spent the weekend at the cottage with the girls. Allison helped me plant the new hydrangeas, while Rachel sunbathed and complained about the lack of cell service. I worry about Rachel's priorities sometimes. She seems so focused on appearances and material things. I hope as she matures, she'll come to appreciate what really matters. Family, memories. This special place that has been our constant through good times and bad. I've decided to leave the cottage to both girls jointly in my will. My hope is that being co-owners will strengthen their bond as sisters and keep them connected to each other and to me after I'm gone." Below this passage, Rachel had scrawled in angry handwriting, "Sorry, Mom, but I needed the money more than the memories. You never understood what it takes to succeed in today's world." My hands shook as I carefully returned the journal to its place. Mom's true wishes had been right there in black and white, and Rachel had not only ignored them but mocked them. She had found this passage, one that explicitly stated Mom's hopes for the cottage, and still manipulated me into selling it for her wedding. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. in the estate's rose garden. As the hour approached, the bridal party lined up for the processional. Rachel was positively glowing, clutching her father-in-law's arm since our father wasn't alive to walk her down the aisle. "How do I look?" she whispered to me as the music began. "Beautiful," I answered truthfully. Despite everything, she was a stunning bride. She squeezed my hand. "I wish Mom could see me." I bit my tongue, knowing that if Mom could actually see what was happening, she would be heartbroken. The ceremony proceeded perfectly. Rachel and William exchanged heartfelt vows beneath an arch of imported roses. Not a single detail was out of place. The string quartet played flawlessly, flower petals danced in the gentle breeze, and even the ring-bearer, William's young cousin, performed his duty without a hitch. At the reception, waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while guests marveled at the ice sculpture, the towering floral arrangements, and the custom-built dance floor. The estimated $50,000 budget seemed conservative given the opulence surrounding us. I moved through the crowd in a daze, accepting congratulations and fielding questions about my maid of honor speech. Michael stayed close by, his steadying presence the only thing keeping me grounded. "You okay?" he murmured as we found our seats at the head table. "I don't know what I'm going to do," I whispered back. The reception schedule moved forward with mechanical precision. First dance, father, daughter dance, dinner service, cake cutting. Then came the moment I had been dreading. The toasts. William's best man went first, delivering a charming speech about friendship and welcome additions to the family. Then the DJ announced, "And now, a toast from the bride's sister and maid of honor, Allison." With trembling hands, I took the microphone. Rachel beamed at me expectantly, her expression making it clear she anticipated nothing but glowing praise. I opened my mouth to deliver the safe, generic speech I had prepared, but then my eyes fell on the special display Rachel had set up near the gift table, a memorial table for our mother with her photo prominently displayed. Next to it was a large framed sign that read, "In loving memory of Elizabeth Collins, whose final gift made this day possible." Something broke inside me. "I'd like to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate Rachel and William," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "As many of you know, our mother passed away 8 months ago. She was the kindest, most genuine person I've ever known." Rachel nodded approvingly. "Mom left us many gifts," I continued. "Her resilience, her compassion, her laugh. But her most treasured material possession was a small cottage on Lake Michigan that had been in our family for generations." Rachel's smile faltered. "In her will, Mom left that cottage to Rachel and me jointly. Her explicit wish, written in her own journal, was that we would keep it in the family, sharing it with our future children, and maintaining our connection to each other through that special place." The room had grown very quiet. William was looking at Rachel with confusion. 3 months after Mom's death, Rachel came to me in tears, telling me she was in financial crisis. She showed me falsified debt statements and claimed she was facing bankruptcy. She begged me to sell the cottage to save her from financial ruin. Rachel's face had turned white. She gripped William's arm, whispering urgently in his ear. I reached into my clutch and pulled out Mom's journal, which I had retrieved from the bridal suite earlier. "I'd like to read you Mom's actual words about the cottage." As I read the passage aloud, Rachel stood up abruptly. "Allison is clearly jealous of my happiness," she announced, her voice shrill. "She's always resented that Mom favored me." "Rachel, please sit down," William murmured, looking mortified. But I wasn't finished. The cottage sold for $380,000. I gave Rachel her half, $190,000, believing I was saving her from financial disaster. There was no debt crisis, no bankruptcy threat. The money funded this wedding, the ice sculptures, the designer dress, the luxury honeymoon, all paid for by selling the one thing our mother specifically wanted us to keep. The room erupted in uncomfortable murmurs. William was staring at Rachel, his expression a mixture of shock and betrayal. "I'm not telling you this to ruin anyone's day," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I'm telling you because my mother's memory deserves better than to be exploited and misrepresented. She never intended to sell her family cottage for a one-day celebration. Her true wish was for family connection and shared memories for generations to come." I raised my glass, looking directly at William rather than Rachel. To honesty, integrity, and building a marriage on truth. May you both find your way there. I handed the microphone back to the stunned DJ and returned to my seat. Michael squeezed my hand under the table. Rachel was livid, her carefully applied makeup now streaked with angry tears. William sat rigidly beside her, his jaw clenched. His parents were huddled together at their table, whispering intensely. The wedding planner rushed forward, attempting damage control by immediately instructing the band to play. A few couples awkwardly made their way to the dance floor, while most guests remained seated, processing what they had just witnessed. I gathered my purse and nodded to Michael. It was time for us to leave. As we headed for the exit, William's mother intercepted us. "Is this true?" she asked quietly. "About the cottage and the money?" Every word, I confirmed. "I have the documentation if anyone wants to see it." She nodded grimly. William didn't know. He believed Rachel's story about your mother's wishes. "I suspected as much," I replied. "I'm sorry to bring this to light at the wedding, but the lies had gone too far. My mother's memory deserved better." As Michael and I walked to our car, I could see through the reception hall windows that William had left the head table. Rachel sat alone, surrounded by empty chairs, as the celebration she had orchestrated through deception continued awkwardly around her. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only a profound sadness for what had been lost, and a quiet certainty that Mom would have understood why I had to speak the truth. The drive home from the wedding venue was silent. Michael didn't ask questions or offer platitudes, understanding that I needed space to process what had just happened. When we reached my apartment, he simply kissed my forehead and said, "I'm proud of you. Get some rest." But rest didn't come. I sat on my couch in the dark, still wearing my bridesmaid dress, scrolling through the flood of messages, lighting up my phone. From Aunt Patricia. "Is what you said true? About the cottage and Rachel's lies?" From Rachel's college friend Jen. "Oh my God, what happened at the reception? Everyone's talking." From William's cousin. "Shit just hit the fan here. William and his parents are having a closed-door meeting." From Rachel. "How dare you humiliate me like that? You've ruined everything." More messages followed from Rachel, each one more hysterical than the last, alternating between vicious accusations and desperate pleas. "You've always been jealous of me. Please call William and tell him you exaggerated. I'll never forgive you for this. I'm your only sister. How could you do this to me?" I finally silenced my phone around 3 a.m. and managed a few hours of restless sleep. When I checked my messages the next morning, I had dozens more, including one from William. "Allison, I need to speak with you. Rachel and I have postponed our honeymoon. Please call me when you can." Before I could decide whether to respond, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Aunt Patricia standing there with a concerned expression. I hesitated, then opened the door. "I brought coffee and pastries," she said, holding up a bag from my favorite cafe. "Figured you might need it." Over breakfast, I showed her the evidence of Rachel's deception. Copies of the fake financial documents, screenshots of our text exchanges about the cottage, and Mom's journal entries about her wishes for the property. I always thought it seemed out of character for Elizabeth to prioritize a wedding over that cottage. Aunt Patricia sighed. She loved that place more than any material possession. "I know," I said, fighting tears. "That's why I couldn't let Rachel keep lying about Mom's wishes." "The family is divided," she admitted. "Some think you should have kept it private, regardless of the truth. Others are appalled by Rachel's manipulation." "And you?" I asked. She reached for my hand. "I think you honored your mother's memory by standing up for the truth." Elizabeth valued honesty above almost everything else. Throughout the day, the situation continued to unfold through text messages and phone calls. William had confronted Rachel after the reception, demanding to see financial records. According to mutual friends, the newly married couple had spent their wedding night in separate rooms at the hotel. Rachel launched a social media offensive, posting a tearful selfie with the caption, "Heartbroken that my own sister would try to destroy the happiest day of my life, out of jealousy and bitterness. Family should support each other, not tear each other down." Her friends rallied around her, leaving supportive comments and sending me angry messages. But others who had witnessed the revelation firsthand were more measured, recognizing the substance behind my accusations. 3 days after the wedding, Aunt Patricia arranged a family meeting at her house. Rachel arrived with red-rimmed eyes and a defensive posture, William beside her looking grim. I brought Michael for support, along with a folder of documentation. "We need to clear the air," Aunt Patricia began once we were all seated in her living room. "This family has been through enough loss without falling apart over this." "There's nothing to clear up," Rachel snapped. "Allison deliberately humiliated me at my wedding because she's always been jealous that Mom loved me more." "That's not true, and you know it," I said quietly. "Mom loved us both. She just enabled your behavior more." William, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Rachel, we need to be honest here. I've seen the evidence. The financial crisis you claim to be in never existed. You're taking her side?" Rachel's voice rose incredulously. "Your own wife?" "I'm not taking sides," he replied firmly. "I'm acknowledging facts. You lied to your sister to get the cottage money. You lied to me about where the wedding funds came from. You lied to our guests about your mother's wishes." Rachel's face crumpled. "The wedding was supposed to be perfect. My friends all had these amazing celebrations, and I wanted the same. Is that so wrong?" "The wedding isn't the issue," I said. "It's the lies and manipulation to get what you wanted. It's using Mom's memory to cover your tracks." "My parents are devastated," William added. "They value integrity in business and in family. This has really shaken their trust." "So what happens now?" Aunt Patricia asked. Looking between us all, William straightened his shoulders. "I've suggested marriage counseling and financial counseling. My parents have made it clear that continued family support depends on Rachel taking responsibility and making amends." "And what about us?" I asked Rachel directly. "Can you even acknowledge what you did?" For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of genuine remorse in her eyes. Then it vanished, replaced by the defensive anger I'd seen so many times before. "Fine, I shouldn't have lied about the debts," she conceded grudgingly. "But you didn't have to expose me publicly. You could have talked to me privately." "I tried," I reminded her. "Multiple times. You threatened to cut me off if I ruined your wedding." "Well, congratulations," she said bitterly. "You ruined it anyway." The meeting ended with little resolved. Rachel and William left together but clearly distant. Aunt Patricia hugged me tightly at the door. "Give it time," she whispered. "Truth has a way of settling where it belongs." The weeks that followed were difficult. Rachel blocked me on all social platforms and told extended family she needed space from toxic influences. William's family, who had always been polite but reserved with Rachel, now regarded her with unveiled suspicion. About a month after the wedding, I received a surprising email from a lawyer representing Rachel and William. It laid out a proposed settlement agreement. Rachel would repay me $95,000, half of what she had received from the cottage sale, in monthly installments over 5 years. The email noted that this arrangement was a condition set by William's parents for their continued financial support of the couple. After consulting with my own attorney, I agreed to the terms. The money wouldn't bring back the cottage, but it was an acknowledgement of the wrong that had been done and a step toward potential healing. Michael supported my decision. "It's not just about the money," he observed as we reviewed the agreement. "It's about consequences and accountability. Rachel needs to experience both." He was right. Throughout our lives, Rachel had escaped the natural consequences of her actions through charm, manipulation, and Mom's protection. This was perhaps the first time she was being held truly accountable by her husband, his family, and now by me. In an unexpected development, I discovered a small lakefront property for sale about 15 miles from our original cottage. It wasn't as charming or historic, but it had potential. With the first installment from Rachel's repayment and some savings of my own, I made an offer, thinking of it as a down payment on honoring Mom's wishes for our family to maintain a connection to the lake. When I shared this news with Aunt Patricia, she teared up. "Elizabeth would be so proud of you," she said, "for standing up for the truth and for finding a way to keep her dream alive." I wasn't so sure Mom would approve of the public confrontation, but I believed she would understand the need for honesty. As I began planning renovations for the new lake house, I found myself imagining conversations with her about paint colors and furniture placement. In those quiet moments, I felt her presence more strongly than I had in months. Rachel, meanwhile, had begun seeing a therapist at William's insistence. According to Aunt Patricia, who remained in contact with both of us, Rachel was slowly confronting some uncomfortable truths about her behavior patterns and the childhood jealousy that had driven much of her competitive attitude toward me. William had postponed their elaborate honeymoon indefinitely, redirecting those funds toward their debt repayment. They had moved from their expensive apartment into a more modest home, and Rachel had taken a steady job in marketing rather than bouncing between positions as she had before. These changes were promising, but I remained cautious. Rachel had shown remorse before, only to revert to old patterns when it suited her. Still, the structured repayment plan and William's unwavering stance on honesty gave me hope that this time might be different. As summer approached, I faced the bittersweet reality of the first seasonal opening of my new lake house. It wouldn't be the same as the cottage filled with generations of memories, but perhaps it could become the starting point for new traditions, new connections, new healing. One evening, as I sat on my porch looking out at the water, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I answered hesitantly. "Allison?" Rachel's voice was subdued. I got your new number from Aunt Patricia. Is it okay that I called?" "Yes," I said, surprised by her initiative. "It's okay. William and we've been doing a lot of work. With the therapist, I mean." She paused. "I'm starting to understand some things about myself. About why I did what I did." "That's good, Rachel. I don't expect you to forgive me right away," she continued. "But I wanted you to know that I'm trying. The monthly payments will continue no matter what. But I'd like to try to rebuild some kind of relationship eventually. If you're willing." I watched a sailboat glide across the lake, thinking of Mom and her endless capacity for forgiveness, but also her quiet strength. "I'd like that too," I said finally. "But it will take time, and complete honesty moving forward." "I understand," she replied softly. "Thank you for answering." After we hung up, I remained on the porch until sunset, contemplating the complex emotions of the past months. Grief, betrayal, anger, vindication, and now, a tentative hope. The cottage was gone, but perhaps something more valuable might eventually take its place. A relationship between sisters built on truth rather than manipulation, on mutual respect rather than exploitation. Only time would tell if Rachel was truly changing or simply adapting to her new circumstances. But for the first time since Mom's death, I felt a sense of peace about the path forward, whatever it might hold. The morning after Rachel's unexpected call, I contacted my attorney, Sam Greenfield, to update him on the situation. While Rachel's apparent change of heart was encouraging, I wanted to ensure that the legal agreement remained solid regardless of any emotional reconciliation. "The repayment plan is legally binding," Sam assured me over coffee at his office. "Even if you two become best friends tomorrow, she's still obligated to repay the funds according to the schedule." "And if she defaults?" I asked. "Then William's parents have agreed to cover the remaining balance," Sam explained. "That was their condition for continuing financial support to the couple. They've essentially co-signed the agreement." This revelation surprised me. William's parents, Kenneth and Karen Bennett, were successful business owners known for their no-nonsense approach to financial matters. Their involvement meant they were taking Rachel's deception seriously and holding her accountable in a way our mother never had. "Have you considered pursuing fraud charges?" Sam asked cautiously. The falsified financial documents Rachel created could potentially constitute criminal fraud. I shook my head firmly. "No. The repayment and acknowledgement of wrongdoing are enough. I don't want to see my sister with a criminal record." Sam nodded, understanding my position. "Well, the current agreement is solid. The first payment came through on time, and the terms protect you if anything changes in their situation." As I left his office, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The legal structure provided security, but the fact that such measures were necessary between sisters was a painful reminder of how far our relationship had deteriorated. 2 weeks later, I received an unexpected email from William. "Allison, I wanted to update you on some developments. During therapy, Rachel has begun addressing significant financial management issues. Her therapist has diagnosed her with a shopping addiction that stems from childhood insecurities. We've brought in a financial counselor who specializes in behavioral finance to work with us. The counselor has uncovered multiple secret credit cards and hidden purchases Rachel made throughout our relationship. The situation is worse than I initially understood. While this doesn't excuse her deception regarding the cottage, it does provide some context. I've implemented a structured financial plan that Rachel has agreed to follow, including complete transparency, joint accounts, and regular meetings with our counselor. My parents have been surprisingly supportive once they understood the psychological component of Rachel's behavior. I thought you deserved to know, as her sister and as someone directly affected by her actions. Regards, William. The email offered a window into Rachel's complex issues that went beyond simple selfishness or materialism. While it didn't erase the hurt she had caused, it helped me understand the depth of her struggle and the professional help she was now receiving. I responded with a brief but supportive message, thanking William for the update and expressing hope for Rachel's continued progress. His reply came quickly. My parents were prepared to push for annulment when the truth came out. They built their business on integrity and were horrified by the deception. But they're giving us a chance to rebuild on honest foundations. It won't be easy, but I believe it's possible. Rachel mentioned you have a new lake property. Perhaps someday, when appropriate, we might visit. No pressure, of course. The offer surprised me. After the wedding disaster, I had assumed William would want nothing to do with his wife's family. His willingness to maintain a connection showed character and perhaps genuine love for Rachel despite her flaws. Meanwhile, work on my new lake house progressed steadily. It was smaller than Mom's cottage, just a 2-bedroom bungalow with a screened porch, but it had the same direct access to the water that had made our original property so special. I chose paint colors similar to those Mom had loved, installed bookshelves like the ones Dad had built, and even found vintage furniture that echoed the cottage's comfortable, lived-in feel. As the first quarterly payment from Rachel arrived, I channeled it directly into improvements. A new dock, landscaping that mimicked Mom's beloved garden layout, and restoration of the stone fire pit where we had roasted marshmallows as children. Each addition was a small act of reclaiming what had been lost, not just materially but spiritually. 5 months after the wedding, Aunt Patricia called with news. Rachel asked me if you might be willing to meet with her. Just the two of you, at a neutral location. My stomach tightened. Did she say why? She mentioned her therapist thought it might be important for her recovery to make amends in person, not just through financial repayment. I considered this carefully. Tell her I'll meet her at Riverside Cafe next Saturday at noon. The week leading up to our meeting was filled with anxiety. What would I say to her? What could she possibly say that would make any difference? Michael encouraged me to listen with an open mind but maintain firm boundaries. Remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or allowing the same patterns to continue, he reminded me the night before. It means releasing the anger so it doesn't consume you. When I arrived at the cafe, Rachel was already there, seated at a quiet table in the corner. She looked different, less polished, more natural. Her designer clothes had been replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, her makeup was minimal, and her previously highlighted hair had returned to its natural brown, much like mine. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down, her voice lacking its usual confident edge. "Aunt Patricia said you wanted to talk," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. Rachel took a deep breath. "My therapist suggested writing a letter, but I wanted to say this in person. I'm sorry, Allison. Truly sorry for what I did." I remained silent, waiting for more. "The therapist has helped me understand some things about myself," she continued. "About why I've always felt this need to compete with you, to have more, to be the center of attention." "And why is that?" I asked, genuinely curious. "It sounds ridiculous saying it out loud," she admitted. "But I always felt like I was the afterthought in our family. You were the planned child, the responsible one who made everyone proud. I was the surprise baby who could never quite measure up. Mom and Dad never made those distinctions," I objected. "Not explicitly, no. But you were Dad's fishing buddy, Mom's helper in the kitchen. You got straight, as without trying. I was always trying to find my thing, my way to matter. I considered this perspective, so different from my own experience of our childhood. So you turned to material things? She nodded. Things I could show off. Achievements people could see. The perfect wedding was just an extension of that. Something to prove I was successful, worthy. At the expense of Mom's wishes, I pointed out, not willing to let her off the hook entirely. Yes, she acknowledged, looking down at her hands. I convinced myself she would understand, that she'd want me to be happy. But that was just another lie I told myself. We ordered lunch, the conversation pausing as the waitress brought our food. When she left, Rachel continued. William almost left me, she revealed quietly. The night of the wedding, he said he couldn't build a life with someone he couldn't trust. What changed his mind? I asked. He agreed to give me a chance if I got help, real help. So now I see Dr. Marshall twice a week for therapy, and we see a financial counselor every Friday. I had to turn over all my credit cards, and we have a strict budget that William monitors. She smiled ruefully. It's like being a teenager with an allowance again. And how do you feel about that? Honestly, sometimes I hate it. But sometimes it's a relief not to be constantly chasing the next purchase, the next high. The counselor explained how shopping was activating dopamine responses in my brain, creating an actual addiction cycle. I was surprised by her self-awareness. The Rachel I knew would never have admitted to such vulnerabilities. William's parents have been surprisingly supportive, she continued. They've made the repayments to you a non-negotiable condition, but they're also helping us with the therapy costs. Karen actually confided that William's older brother struggled with gambling addiction in college. So they understand the addiction component better than I expected. We continued talking through lunch, the conversation moving between difficult admissions and occasional moments of connection reminiscent of our pre-betrayal relationship. Rachel shared more details about her treatment program, and I told her about the renovations at the new lake house. Do you think? She hesitated. Do you think someday I could see it? The new place? The question caught me off guard. Maybe. Eventually. When we're both ready. As we prepared to leave, Rachel handed me a small gift bag. This doesn't make up for anything, she said quickly. But I found it in a box of Mom's things that I took after she passed. Inside was Mom's old recipe book, filled with handwritten family favorites, including her famous blueberry pancakes that we'd eaten every Sunday at the cottage. I thought you might want it for the new lake house, Rachel explained. To continue the tradition, the thoughtful gesture moved me more than I expected. It was a small acknowledgement of what had been lost and an offering toward what might be rebuilt. Thank you, I said sincerely. This means a lot. As we parted ways on the sidewalk outside, Rachel asked hesitantly, Can we do this again sometime? I considered the progress of our conversation and the genuine effort she seemed to be making. Yes, I decided. Not right away, but yes. The legal and financial resolution continued to unfold according to the agreement. Monthly payments arrived consistently, and William provided quarterly updates on their financial counseling progress. But it was this human element, the tentative steps toward authentic communication, that offered the most hope for eventual healing. That evening, I placed Mom's recipe book on the shelf in my new lake house kitchen, running my fingers over her familiar handwriting. The cottage was gone, but perhaps its essence, the connection it was meant to foster, might survive in a different form. As I watched the sunset over the lake from my dock, I thought about the complexity of forgiveness, not a single act, but a process, a journey with many steps forward and backward. Rachel and I had a long way to go, but for the first time since discovering her deception, I believed that journey might be possible. 6 months after Rachel's wedding, I stood on the dock of my new lake house, watching the early morning mist rise off the water. The Memorial Day weekend marked my first official summer opening of the property, and I had spent the past week preparing everything to perfection. The gardens were planted with Mom's favorite flowers, the bookshelves stocked with novels for rainy days, and the refrigerator filled with ingredients for her beloved recipes. Though smaller than our original cottage, this place had begun to feel like home. I had painted the walls the same soft blue, hung family photos in similar arrangements, and even found a porch swing that matched the one where Mom had spent countless hours reading. It wasn't the same, but it carried the essence of what she had valued most. Michael emerged from the house carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "It looks amazing," he said, handing me a cup and surveying the property. "Your mom would love what you've done here." "I think she would," I agreed. The ache of losing the original cottage had diminished, replaced by appreciation for this new beginning. With each improvement I made, each memory I honored through design choices, I felt closer to fulfilling Mom's wish for a continuing family connection to the lake. The past months had brought significant changes for everyone involved in the wedding drama. Rachel and William had settled into a modest townhouse, far different from the luxury apartment they'd initially planned. Rachel was now 7 months into her therapy program and financial counseling, with William reporting steady progress in both areas. Our own relationship had evolved into cautious communication, occasional text messages, brief phone calls on birthdays and holidays, and 2 more coffee meetings supervised by Aunt Patricia. Rachel seemed genuinely committed to her recovery process, acknowledging her issues without the deflection and blame that had characterized her behavior for years. Rachel called yesterday. I told Michael as we sipped our coffee. She wanted to know if we'd be open to her and William visiting the lake house sometime this summer. "How do you feel about that?" he asked carefully. I considered the question. Mixed emotions. Honestly, part of me is still hurt and wary, but another part sees how hard she's trying and wants to give her a chance. "It's your decision," Michael said. "But remember what Dr. Lewis told you. Healing doesn't have to mean forgetting boundaries." I had begun seeing a therapist myself a few months after the wedding confrontation, recognizing my own need to process not just Rachel's betrayal, but decades of enabling behavior that had contributed to our dysfunctional dynamic. Dr. Lewis had helped me understand that my tendency to rescue Rachel, paying her bills, making excuses for her behavior, accepting her manipulations, wasn't actually helping her grow. In trying to protect her, I had become complicit in her patterns. "I think I'll invite them for the 4th of July weekend," I decided. "It gives me a month to prepare emotionally, and having a specific activity, the fireworks over the lake, provides structure for the visit." When I extended the invitation by phone that evening, Rachel's surprise was evident in her voice. "Really? You want us to come?" "Want might be too strong a word," I admitted candidly. "But I'm ready to try. Mom would want us to find a way forward." "Thank you," she said softly. "This means more than you know." In the weeks leading up to their visit, I continued making improvements to the property. The repayment money from Rachel, now arriving reliably each month, funded a new retaining wall along the shoreline and repairs to the boat dock. Each project felt like reclaiming a piece of what had been lost, transforming pain into progress. The weekend before their scheduled visit, I invited a small group of extended family to the lake house for a memorial gathering in Mom's honor. Aunt Patricia came with her husband and children, along with 2 of Mom's closest friends and their families. As we shared stories and looked through old photo albums, the house began to feel infused with the same warmth that had characterized our original cottage. "Elizabeth would be so proud," Mom's friend Janet told me as we prepared lunch together in the kitchen. "Not just of this beautiful place, but of how you've handled everything with such grace." "I don't know about grace," I laughed. "There was that whole wedding speech debacle. Sometimes truth needs to be spoken, even when it's uncomfortable," she said, wisely. Elizabeth valued honesty above almost everything else. The day of Rachel and William's visit arrived with perfect summer weather. I had spent the morning nervously cleaning already clean rooms and rearranging furniture. Michael arrived early to provide moral support, bringing flowers for the table and steaks for the grill. "Remember, this is your space," he reminded me. "You set the tone and the boundaries." When their car pulled up the gravel driveway at noon, I took a deep breath and stepped onto the porch to greet them. Rachel emerged from the passenger side looking nervous, one hand resting protectively on her purse as if it contained something precious. "The place looks beautiful," she said tentatively as they approached. "The blue color. It's just like Mom's cottage." "That was the idea," I acknowledged, leading them inside. William, who had remained somewhat distant in our limited interactions since the wedding, seemed genuinely impressed as I showed them around. "You've created something really special here, Allison," he said. "I can see why your mother valued lake living so much." The initial awkwardness gradually eased as we settled into activities: a late lunch on the deck, a short boat ride around the lake, and preparation for evening fireworks. Rachel was quieter than her typical self, observing more than performing, a change that Dr. Lewis had suggested might indicate real growth rather than simply modified behavior. After dinner, as Michael and William discussed fishing possibilities on the dock, Rachel and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen washing dishes. "I've been thinking about Mom a lot lately," she said, carefully drawing a water glass. "About what she really wanted for us." "The cottage was important to her," I replied, unable to completely set aside that loss. "Not just the physical place," Rachel said thoughtfully, "but what it represented: connection, family history, shared experiences." She placed the glass in the cabinet. "I didn't value those things enough. I was too focused on appearances, on what other people thought." Her insight surprised me. "That sounds like therapy talking," I observed, not unkindly. She smiled ruefully. 7 months and counting. Turns out when you actually do the work, you learn things about yourself." She hesitated before continuing. "Dr. Marshall helped me understand that my competitiveness with you, my need for attention and external validation, came from feeling like I was living in your shadow growing up." "I never saw it that way," I said, genuinely surprised. "I know. You were just being you, responsible, capable, reliable, the perfect daughter. Meanwhile, I was the mess who could never quite get it right." "You weren't a mess, Rachel. You were just different." "Different, yes. But instead of finding my own strengths, I became obsessed with having what you had, then having more, having better. The wedding was the ultimate expression of that. It had to be perfect, enviable, Instagram-worthy." She shook her head. "And I was willing to sacrifice something genuinely valuable to achieve that temporary illusion." We finished the dishes in contemplative silence. As Rachel placed the last plate in the cabinet, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small wrapped package. "I brought something for the house," she said, handing it to me. "A housewarming gift, I guess." I unwrapped it carefully to find a framed photograph I'd never seen before. Mom sitting on the dock of the original cottage, her face tilted toward the sunset, looking perfectly content. The photo captured her essence: serene, present, appreciative of simple beauty. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice catching. "William took it 2 summers ago, when we visited Mom for the weekend," Rachel explained. "I found it on his old camera roll recently. I thought it belonged here." The thoughtful gesture touched me deeply. This wasn't an expensive gift designed to impress or manipulate. It was a meaningful contribution to the new lake house's connection to Mom and our shared history. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "It's perfect." That evening, the 4 of us sat on the dock watching fireworks explode over the lake, their colors reflecting in the dark water. Rachel and William sat slightly apart from Michael and me, their body language suggesting the cautious reconstruction of their own relationship alongside our tentative family healing. As the final bursts of color faded from the sky, Rachel turned to me. "I know I can never replace what was lost," she said quietly, "but I want you to know I'm committed to repaying every cent, no matter how long it takes, and to rebuilding trust between us. If you're willing." "I'm willing to try," I replied honestly. "It won't be easy or quick." "I know," she acknowledged, "but some things are worth the work." In that moment, I felt Mom's presence more strongly than I had since her passing, not in sadness or regret for what had been lost, but in hope for what might still be salvaged and rebuilt. The next morning, as Rachel and William prepared to leave, I found myself experiencing a complex mixture of emotions: lingering hurt and wariness, yes, but also a tentative optimism that had been absent for many months. "Would it be okay if we visited again sometime?" Rachel asked as they stood by their car. "Maybe for a weekend in August?" I nodded. "I'd like that. But let's continue our coffee meetings in between. Small steps." She smiled, understanding the boundary. Small steps. After they drove away, Michael and I sat on the porch swing, reminiscent of the one Mom had loved at the original cottage. "How are you feeling?" he asked. his arm around my shoulders. Cautiously hopeful, I replied. I don't think our relationship will ever be what it was before. Maybe that's not even desirable given the unhealthy patterns we had. But I can see a path forward now. Your mom would be proud, he said, echoing Janet's words from the previous weekend. Not of everything, I admitted, thinking of my public confrontation at the wedding, but I think she'd understand why I did what I did. As summer unfolded, the new lake house became the center of gradual family healing. Rachel and William visited twice more, each time bringing small, thoughtful contributions: herbs for the garden, a wind chime similar to one that had hung at the original cottage, family photos I'd thought were lost. The monthly repayments continued without fail, each one a tangible acknowledgement of the wrong that had been done and the commitment to making amends. William reported that Rachel's therapy was progressing well, with significant insights into her behavior patterns and childhood insecurities. By Labor Day weekend, the traditional close of the Michigan lake season, I had invited Rachel and William, along with Aunt Patricia's family and a few close friends, for a final summer gathering. As we all sat around the fire pit roasting marshmallows, a tradition carried over from the original cottage, I realized that Mom's true wish was being fulfilled, though not in the way any of us had expected. The physical cottage was gone, but the connection it was meant to foster had survived, transformed by crisis into something potentially stronger and more authentic than before. The inheritance that truly mattered wasn't the property itself, but the values Mom had tried to instill in us: honesty, forgiveness, resilience, and the importance of family bonds, however imperfect they might be. Later that evening, as the guests departed and the lake house grew quiet, I stood on the dock watching the stars reflect on the water. Michael joined me, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders against the growing autumn chill. "Penny, for your thoughts," he said. I was thinking about Mom's journal entry, the one I read at the wedding, about her hope that the cottage would strengthen our bond as sisters. I turned to face him. In the strangest, most painful way possible, it ultimately did. "Life rarely follows the path we expect," he observed. No, I agreed, but sometimes the unexpected path leads somewhere worth going anyway. As we walked back to the house hand in hand, I glanced at the framed photo of Mom that now held a place of honor on the mantel. In the soft lamplight, her smile seemed to hold a special wisdom, an understanding that family relationships are messy, complicated, and sometimes broken, but always worth the difficult work of repair. The cottage was gone, but what it represented, connection, history, shared experiences, had survived in this new space we were creating together. Not perfect, not unmarked by pain, but genuine in a way that superficial harmony could never achieve. I've shared this story because I know many of you have faced similar family conflicts where standing up for truth meant risking relationships. If my experience has taught me anything, it's that real family bonds can survive hard truths when there's willingness to grow on both sides. If you found value in this journey, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real stories about family relationships, difficult choices, and finding healing after betrayal. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that family reconciliation is possible, even after the deepest hurts. Thank you for being part of this community where we can share our real, messy, beautiful family stories. Remember, sometimes the most meaningful inheritances aren't things at all, but the courage to honor truth and build authentic relationships.